Have you had any sexual contact with another man?
Mm-hmm.
People are looking up to you. People have to respect you.
It's not evil. It's not bad. It's not wrong.
I'm not saying, okay, that you're... I'm not saying that. What I am trying to figure out is why would you tell an 18-year-old kid when he gets a on to lean against you so you know that he has a on? Did you?
No, I did not.
2 gunshots echoed through a quiet funeral home. For 2 years, the investigation went nowhere. Then a tip led police to a Roman Catholic priest, and what they uncovered was about more than just murder. And the final truth will make you wonder if we really know the people we are supposed to trust. Guys, thank you so much for being here today. I promise to make this absolutely worth your while. Before we dive in, if you have a quick moment, drop your current location or time down below, because honestly, seeing how far this family reaches across the globe is the best part of my day. Look, here's the deal. I'm striving to make the best content possible. So if I earn it, please subscribe. But if not, tell me why. Seriously, I handle criticism well and just want to get better for you. Sorry for taking your precious time. Let's start. It was a freezing afternoon in February, the year 2002. The O'Connell Funeral Home was supposed to be a sanctuary, a place of quiet reflection and safety for the grieving. But that sacred silence was violently shattered by the sharp crack of gunfire. 2 shots echoed through the halls, and in a heartbeat, a place of mourning became a brutal crime scene. Those bullets ended the lives of 2 innocent men, the funeral director Dan O'Connell and a young intern named James Ellison. Just think about that for a second. James was just an intern, likely only there to learn a trade, yet he found himself in the wrong place at the absolute worst time. For 2 agonizing years, the investigation into this double homicide felt like it was chasing ghosts. Detectives worked themselves to the bone, conducting nearly 2,000 interviews and tracking down every conceivable lead. Yet, despite that massive effort, the case went ice cold. It seemed hopeless. That was, until a critical tip came in during 2004. It wasn't about the murder weapon, but about a character flaw. A report surfaced regarding a priest's misconduct with teenagers, giving detectives a chilling new reason to look at a Roman Catholic priest named Father Ryan Erickson. This brings us to one of the most disturbing cases I have ever come across, a story where the people we are taught to trust, the shepherds, turn out to be the wolves. Father Erickson was only 31 years old, but his private life was filled with red flags. He had a known, almost obsessive fascination with firearms. A priest with a gun fixation? That alone feels wrong. But even more sinister was his pattern of providing alcohol to teenage boys. The investigation took a dark turn when police realized Erickson had met with Dan O'Connell just days before the execution-style murders. Authorities believe this wasn't a friendly visit. It was a confrontation. Dan had likely stood up to Erickson about his inappropriate behavior with minors. This single encounter placed the priest directly in the crosshairs of the investigation. He had a motive silencing a man who knew his secret. Armed with this explosive context, detectives knew they had to bring Father Erickson in for questioning immediately.
Dan O'Connell and James Ellison.
I have no idea.
If you knew, would you tell us?
If I knew, and it was outside the sacrament of reconciliation, I would tell you. And nobody came to me saying they killed James Ellison or Dan O'Connell.
As the detectives turned up the heat, drilling down into his specific movements, the atmosphere in that interrogation room must have been suffocating. They weren't satisfied with vague answers. They demanded precise, minute-by-minute accounts of where he was the day before and the day after the incident. And this is exactly where his facade began to crack. You see, there is a fundamental rule about deception. When you tell the truth, you just have to remember what happened. But when you lie, you have to remember what you said happened. Under that intense pressure, his carefully constructed lies began to completely unravel. It was a classic spiral. He simply could not keep his story straight, and the detectives could see it happening in real time. He started frantically mixing up timelines, placing himself in locations that didn't make sense, and inventing specific details that were clumsy and desperate. These weren't the lies of a mastermind. They were fragile fabrications that would collapse under even the slightest bit of professional scrutiny. Every time he tried to patch a hole in his story, he just opened up 2 more.
Some of the things that we talked about in your recollection of that day, there's some discrepancies in what we've heard both times.
You made another stop prior to that.
Stop.
Did you go back to the church?
I would have come up and said to Ellen that I was going to be gone or I'd be back shortly or whatever, and then would have gone up and to the tobacco shop and then come back, and that's when I saw Ellen.
At that point, if you didn't know, Ryan, if a priest had gone up there or not, why didn't you go?
I think that's when I think I did go up there, but I can't recall. I really can't. I know that I went up there, and I know that it was up there a number of times, and I know that I saw, or I think I saw Father DeBruzzi up there. Or somebody told me he was there, one of the two. And that's when I thought, well, if DeBruzzi's there, DeBruzzi's there. He's up at the funeral home. And when I had gone up again to look, that's when I was told to keep moving.
Honestly, watching this guy lie is painful. It is like watching a car crash in slow motion. You know it is going to get messy, but you just cannot look away. Then, just when you think it couldn't get any messier, he provides yet another inconsistent version of his supposed trip to a tobacco shop. It should have been a simple alibi to maintain a quick errand, but he couldn't stick to the script. And get this, because it is truly baffling. This new account directly conflicted with exactly what he had stated just moments before in the very same interview. He was practically arguing with his own timeline. The contradictions were piling up fast, and each one represented a massive, undeniable crack in his rapidly crumbling facade of innocence. He was losing control of the narrative, and the detectives were watching it happen.
Ian Hurley, you had mentioned, and this is a pretty significant thing, but you had mentioned what you heard about number of shots, placement of shots. Do you remember saying that?
I don't remember saying anything about placements of shots or anything.
I mean, as far as where on the bodies, you had indicated to me.
Well, I thought I had said that maybe one shot or something, but I wasn't sure of how many shots or even where the placement of the shots would be.
You don't recall saying that, or you didn't say it?
Well, I don't think I said anything about it. I think I remember you asking the question, and I said, well, I wasn't exactly sure, but I'm not sure how I answered.
Do you know where they were shot?
If we were telling you that there's people that have come forward since our conversation, that we're going to go back and talk to people, that they said that they saw you coming back to the church, northbound on Wisconsin Street. Can you explain that to us?
No, I can't. I could have come back that direction. Like I told you guys, I wasn't sure as to what directions I was taking. And so when I was sitting there talking with you, I'm trying to come up with the best plan in my mind of where was I going and what was I doing. But maybe I came back on that road. I really don't know.
But you would have went by the funeral home again.
I really don't remember.
Now, this specific detail is absolutely critical to the entire case. The exact, precise placement of those shots, that is not public knowledge. That is what investigators often refer to as holdback evidence. Vital details deliberately kept secret to verify confessions. It is the kind of intimate information that only a very select few, lead detectives, and the actual killer themselves would possess. It wasn't on the news, and it certainly wasn't common knowledge. So you have to stop and ask yourself the obvious question. How could he possibly have known that? Where did that specific image come from, if not from memory? At this stage, the coincidences are becoming far too heavy. They are piling up to a point where they are simply impossible to reconcile with innocence. The math just doesn't work. Sensing they were close to a major breakthrough, the detectives decided to test him right there in the room. They slid a sketch of the area across the table and issued a challenge. They asked him to physically trace his path. "Show us," they effectively said. "Show us your route on paper."
You saw Sergeant Jensen. Was that on your initial way through?
I think that was it was later in the day.
Later in the day?
Yeah.
When you came back? You went through the first time and you came back?
I think that's when I went off to the sisters then. I think that's when I went off to the sisters.
Okay, before you went back to the church?
No, this would be the second time when I came through, or third
Okay,
time.
let's talk about the first time here. So you went
Okay.
through, and then you left, and you went up to the church, and something happened.
Yeah, they said somebody had gotten hurt or something had happened, and I could have swore they said Dan had gotten hurt.
Dan got hurt, or Dan got killed.
I'm not sure exactly what she said, but it could be Dan was killed or Dan got hurt or something happened at the funeral home. Something like that was said.
Okay.
And then, almost as if on cue, comes the classic excuse. Very conveniently, he claimed he was completely without his cell phone on that particular critical trip. Isn't that always the way it goes? The one device that could definitively track his location via tower pings and prove his innocence just happened to be missing on the day of a double murder. It is a detail that just screams avoidance. But the story gets even weaker. He also told the detectives that he didn't remember if he even saw the person he supposedly spoke to. Stop and think about that statement for a second. How do you have a meaningful interaction or a conversation with someone and not recall if you actually laid eyes on them? It defies basic human interaction. It sounds exactly like someone making it up as they go along, terrified of providing a specific detail like a face or a description that could be easily disproven by a witness later. The detectives weren't buying any of it, so they pushed for the map again, but he dodged every single attempt to have him accurately draw his route. He effectively refused to put pen to paper. Why be so afraid of a simple map? Because he knew the danger. Once you draw a physical line on a map, you are locked in. You cannot change your story later if traffic cameras or witnesses prove you wrong. He knew that trap was waiting for him, and he wasn't going to step into it. At this point, there were so many glaring holes in his story that it looked like Swiss cheese. The investigators just kept poking at those inconsistencies, relentless in their pressure, watching him squirm under the weight of his own lies.
Do you know where they were shot?
I thought I had heard by his desk and in some doorway.
Never once has anybody from the Hudson Police Department ever mentioned where the bodies were, positions, etc. Nor in the course of this investigation through 1,900 and some people has anybody ever brought up a speculation, a probability, a possibility, or anything like that as far as where the bodies were. Nor has anybody told us how many times they were shot or where they were shot. If that hasn't been brought up in 1,900 some interviews, and out of the course of 5 people in our department that knew exactly that, and not even he knows where that was, why do you know that?
I don't know why I know that.
Or why are you giving us information that this is what you heard?
Well, this is what I had heard. You ask me a question, I tell you the answer. So if I overheard that and I didn't tell you, then I'd be lying to you. So I tell you what I hear in the sense that if I heard these things, where it was, I'm not sure, or if it was just idle chit chat or what it was, that's all I'm telling you.
Having realized that the direct approach with the map was causing him to clam up, the investigators decided to execute a tactical pivot. They skillfully changed the subject of the conversation entirely, shifting the focus away from his travel route and directly onto his known obsession, his history with guns. It was a calculated psychological move, get him talking about a topic he feels knowledgeable and passionate about, hoping that his guard might drop just enough for him to make a mistake. But then, the dynamic in the room shifted even more dramatically. At that precise moment, a third detective, who had been quietly watching the entire exchange from across the room, likely analyzing every twitch and hesitation like a hawk, decided it was time to chip in. He entered the conversation with clear intent, and let me tell you, with his entrance, the entire atmosphere of the interrogation changed drastically. It wasn't just a Q&A anymore. It felt like a trap snapping shut. You could almost feel the air leave the room. The initial phase of polite probing was officially over. Now, the real heat was arriving. The pressure was about to be turned up to a breaking point, and the detectives were ready to see if the priest would finally crack under the weight of 3 experienced interrogators.
I feel like I'm in a movie, and I don't like what I'm experiencing. Okay, I don't like it, quite frankly. When asked for you to explain where you were or what you were doing or this kind of stuff, you would say, I would be doing, as though you are abstracting or as you are not actually saying, I was here, I was here, I was here. okay? And it sounds like wiggle room to skeptics like me, okay? And it appears, if I were going to be unkind or honest, okay, you have selective memory, okay? Granted, I will agree that people several years have passed and whatever else, but I don't think fellows were that long away from you from the last interview, okay? And so things have shifted and all this kind of stuff. And I realize that it can be a tense time while you're here, and I don't expect you to be relaxed, okay? I'm going to tell you straight up, you sound like you're lying, okay?
I'll tell you straight up, I'm not. Straight up, I'm not.
And I think that I'm just more direct than maybe they're not thinking the same thing I am, but I'm telling them at the same time, okay? If I were sitting in their chairs, okay, we would be having a different conversation. Your recall is not explainable, or your lack of recall is not explainable, okay? It just isn't, okay? You put yourself into a difficult position that's very difficult to support.
How about a polygraph?
They're the men.
How
Ask
about
them.
polygraph?
I'd take a polygraph.
Would you?
As long as you keep the right to those specific questions, perfectly fine.
Specific questions mean.
Well, I'm just saying, did you kill Dan O'Connell? We're not speculating on all kinds of other stuff. If you make it point blank clear, I'll take a polygraph.
Okay. Would you be willing to come down? Obviously, with the stuff that we have, and to help us out. I mean, that's what we're here for. That's what
I would come down.
You would come down.
I'd make arrangements with the bishop. We'll make sure that we get things covered, and I'll come down.
Would you consent to a search of your residence?
Sure.
This new detective didn't just walk in, he took over. He definitely sounds very experienced, the kind of veteran investigator who knows exactly when to stop being polite. Almost immediately, his aggressive tone transformed the interrogation from a simple, fact-finding questioning session into a direct, volatile confrontation with Erickson. The gloves were officially off. Now, let's pause on a crucial visual detail here. If you're wondering, wearing the full religious robe or clerical collar during a police interrogation is not illegal. He had every right to wear it. But as the detective sharply pointed out, this wasn't an accidental fashion choice. It was likely a highly calculated psychological move. Why wear the uniform of the church in a murder investigation? It was probably done with the specific intent to create a barrier to dehumanize himself, in a sense, turning himself into a symbol of God rather than a man suspected of murder. He wanted to remind everyone in that room of his position of authority and maintain that high-status figure, hoping the detectives would hesitate to attack a priest. It was a classic power play, a visual shield designed to command respect, but the detectives saw right through the costume. They weren't intimidated by the collar. Instead, they used it against him. They pivoted instantly, cutting through his holy image to question him about a very sketchy, disturbing situation involving a minor. In one move, they stripped away his moral high ground and dragged him back down to earth.
We have a concern also with some things that, do you have any idea why he would come to the Hudson Police Department and discuss something? What was your relationship with him?
Friends. I helped him out with, what do you call it?
How close of friends were you with him?
Just friends.
Did he ever become highly intoxicated and get sick?
He did.
Tell me about that.
Well, he got sick, and so I went and I put him into the shower, took his clothes and got his clothes washed, and then brought him back, and then put him to bed.
It is a truly crazy world when a priest is the one handing out alcohol to a minor and then bathing them. This was a situation where Father Ryan was their legal guardian. And yet, on more than one occasion, he was an individual who took advantage of minors. The priest tried to escape every single question, but the detectives were on to him now. They weren't letting go.
Just once?
Just one time, yeah.
For permission. Then after
No,
that,
I don't know his permission.
Okay.
I don't know if he asked either.
You knew that he was underage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, you still provided alcohol to him at their house. They gave him alcohol. Wine? You know he was underage then also, correct?
Yeah.
Did you ever intervene? Say, do not give him the alcohol?
No, I did not.
Why wouldn't you intervene as a priest to give an 18-year-old kid alcohol? People are looking up to you. People have to respect you. Is there any legal reason why you would allow that to happen?
Father Ryan's silence in response to these questions is absolutely deafening. But what he doesn't realize is that the detectives already knew about past allegations of sexual misconduct, allegations that dated all the way back to his seminary days. Those claims had been cleared at the time, but only after a psychological evaluation. Armed with this knowledge, they then press him even more.
Talk to me laid on the bed together.
There was a time when we laid on the bed, we were talking about things of confession and trying to assure him that he wasn't as evil as he thought he was, or that his mother thought he was, and that was primarily it. I held him at one part as he was crying. I held him and said to him, that everything would be fine. Don't worry, God loves you, and reassured him about those things.
Anything else you want to add to that before I ask you about something else?
No, that's...
The detectives aren't buying any of his deflections or his feigned memory loss. They ask him harder questions about this history now, making a crucial observation. They note how he responds to these questions about his past misconduct far more openly than he does to any questions about the murders.
Told him it was okay to become aroused when he was with you?
I told him it was okay to be aroused because I wanted to get across to him that that's not sinful in itself. That's not sinful to be aroused. And too often what happens is they get caught up in this idea that that's sinful in and of itself. And I said, it's what you do when you're aroused. It's the things that you do.
But he told us that he said he was supposed to lean against you so you knew that he was aroused and everything was okay. Why would you tell him that?
The only thing I was trying to get across to him was to tell him that arousal was not a bad thing.
I'm not saying, okay, that you're... I'm not saying that. What I am trying to figure out is why would you tell an 18-year-old kid when he gets a on to lean against you so you know that he has a on?
Because I wanted him to get past the shame, the idea that this is a bad thing, that we have to hide these kind of things.
Tell me again why he was supposed to lean up against you when he was aroused. Just help my mind, enlighten me on that.
I have no explanation other than to say what I was trying to do was to get him to see that that is not evil, it's not bad, it's not wrong. And if he, I don't know. That's.
Have you had any sexual contact with another man?
No.
How about with a woman?
No.
Have you ever had any sexual contact with a child?
No.
A juvenile?
No.
Hearing such words come out of the mouth of a priest is sickening. But what's truly telling is that Father Erickson's memory isn't foggy on this matter at all. In fact, he even remembers the specific clothes he wore on that night with the juvenile. His memory, it seems, is only selective when it comes to murder.
What do you think should happen to the person who killed Dan O'Connell and James Ellison?
I think they should be put away for a long time. For life.
Okay, what do you mean put away?
Locked up in the jail.
You don't know who killed Dan O'Connell?
No, I don't know who killed Dan.
Do you know why he was killed?
No, I don't know why he was killed.
Why was James Ellison killed?
I don't know.
Based on things that you've told us before, you're talking about the placement or where the bodies were and that type of thing. Do you think somebody just got in the way when somebody else wanted to shoot somebody else? Is that why there's 2 persons dead instead of 1?
I don't know.
Isn't it convenient? He remembers the color of his socks from 1999, but the day 2 people died? Total blank. Yeah, right. Now, for those of you who don't know, the nature of these killings, executed at close range, suggested a deliberate and calculated act by a skilled individual. In a small town like Hudson, there were only so many people who would have that specific kind of expertise. The list of potential suspects with that skill set was very, very short.
Person, whoever kills another person, intentionally kills somebody, not in self-defense. Are they ever going to be forgiven?
They can be if they repent of their sin. If they're sorry for what they did, if they're really and truly sorry, they can be forgiven.
If we said that we still have to clear up some things with you, told you things have become problematic here, okay? Some of the discrepancies, we've told you some of those, and we're trying to clear those up. How can you go about helping us clear those up? Because what you said sometimes, it wasn't that long ago, was it, when we came and talked to you?
I've thought about it since then. Those kind of things keep going through your mind as I sat there listening. I kept thinking, okay, now did I do that? Didn't I do that? Did I go this way? Didn't I go that way? And so after you guys left, I started evaluating it all over again in my mind. Did I go that way? Didn't I go that way? What did I do?
He claims a complete lack of memory for that entire period surrounding the crime. His selective amnesia returns at the most convenient possible moment, and at this point, the detectives have had enough of the games. So they decide it's time to let him know some of the irrefutable facts they already have.
And you stayed until the end of second shift, which you says is 12:30?
Mm-hmm.
You didn't arrive back to the church until nearly 3 o'clock that afternoon. I want to know where you were. Where did you go? They told you were not at the church.
Well, I'm not sure.
We got to have an. You told us before you knew right where you went, Ryan.
I thought I did. I thought I knew where I was going.
We have a void from what you say is 12:30 until other persons say you did not arrive back to the church.
Did any of them say what time I left? Do any of them know what time I left?
What we have to do is you tell us, or try to help us, where would you go for that length of time on a weekday during the middle of the day if Father Peter was vacationing?
It could be anywhere. I could have gone. I know I wasn't there, but it was typical for me.
When you open up your day planner, there was nothing on your day planner.
It's not untypical for me to go out and go to Leaflet Missile, to go to the chapel.
Okay. Where is Leaflet Missile?
Over in the cities. But I know I wasn't there that day. I'm almost sure.
Okay.
But I'm just saying it's not uncommon for me to just leave the office and go.
You left the school, but where did you go to?
I could have gone. I know that I went to tobacco. I remember the tobacco.
You didn't go to the church. You didn't tell anybody up at the church where you're going. They tried to make contact with you. They were looking for your assistance up at the funeral home. You were nowhere to be found.
I remember what I told you, or at least I remember as much as I can remember that I told you. I know that I went up that way. I know that I saw something was wrong at the funeral home, and I know I was going to the tobacco shop. And I can't account for that time that's missing in your chunk. I know I didn't kill him.
Hey, it's not missing in my chunk. It's in your hands.
Well, I know that, but I mean, what I mean is I don't know how to give you that missing detail of where I was during that time period.
This is actually a common tactic that suspects use. They attempt to explain away gray areas in their schedule by claiming vague or unverifiable activities, like praying alone or going for a long, solitary drive. Let me tell you, it is a largely ineffective strategy because it provides no tangible alibi. Instead, what it really does is highlight their evasiveness and make them look even more guilty.
I do in rare cases, and I don't in most cases.
How about this case?
In this case, my personal opinion is no.
Why?
Because the death penalty, I think, is reserved to those who cannot be reformed and those who have been so heinous of crime, like serial killers and the like.
What makes you think that isn't the case here?
Well, I don't think it's a serial killer.
Or a heinous crime?
How do you know they can be reformed?
Well, I don't. You asked me for my opinion. I told you my opinion.
About the death sentence?
Yeah.
So you think the person that killed Dan O'Connell and James Ellison should not die because you feel that they can be reformed?
I don't know. I would say that the person who killed them, I believe in life, and no, no, they should not be. Whoever it is should not be killed.
Just locked up for a long time.
Forever.
That's not shocking at all. It goes right in line with his twisted belief that the killer can somehow be forgiven. Prior to this interrogation, the police had been searching for his whereabouts. He admitted that he knew they were looking for him. He knew about it, but was just waiting for their call. Does that sound like what an innocent priest who is willing to cooperate with law enforcement would do?
They wanted to know how their dad died. How would you explain that?
Well, if I was asked to explain to them how their dad died, I would say tragically. I don't know what I would say. I'm not sure how I would approach that. It would depend on the circumstance in which they were brought in and said, Father, could you please explain to them or talk to them about this? They're having a hard time. I might talk to them about how God does allow certain things to take place, or I might talk about how he's now in heaven with God and he's happy and watching over them. I probably would keep it at a very level that would be not talking about specifically what happened to him or that kind of thing, but talking about, hey, Dad's now in a better place. God, he's there watching over you. He's still present to you. That's how I would talk to him. Wanted something different, in the sense of talk to them about the shooting. And then at that case, I would say, go talk to Father Peter.
Why would you want to talk to Father Peter?
Well, because I wouldn't know what to say. Wouldn't know where to go. I'm not an expert in that kind of field. I'm an expert in the God field. I can talk about God's love and the hope of everlasting joy. But I wouldn't know where to begin with counseling a child about their dad dying, especially in a very tragic way like that.
Why do you think God allowed this to take place?
I have
the killing of Dan and James?
I have no idea. The only thing I can tell you there is I know that he allowed it to take place because nothing is done without God's allowal. Why? I don't know.
He rationalized the murder by coldly stating that God must have allowed it to happen. Framing such a brutal act as part of some divine plan that is beyond human judgment is a twisted theological justification. Look, I am not a theologian, but blaming God for pulling the trigger? That takes a special kind of evil. That is not faith. That is a confession disguised as philosophy. It's a way to strip away any sense of personal responsibility for his actions. Seeing this disturbing line of reasoning, the detective who was off camera chips in again.
That you're quite willing to tell us your faults in some areas, such as lack of social skill or desirability or adaptability or whatever it is, or basically. I hear you talk about nerves and bits and pieces and all this kind of stuff. You're on the inside of you, I'm not. I don't know what you're thinking, okay? But when I listen to you, okay, I see less nervous as in anxiety, anger, all this emotional kind of stuff. I really see it coming down to kind of like power issues that you don't want to be made a fool of.
No, because I really have been made a fool and I don't like it. But I've had that happen and that's not what, no. I don't want to be accused of something that I did not do.
Sure.
and that's where I'm at.
Help me out a little bit, because I'm still having. I'll give people locations, and I have strange locations too, and all these other sorts of things. Okay. If you don't want to kill anything, okay, I find it a strange thing to be an aficionado of guns, which are designed to kill things. Okay? And what satisfaction is there, besides petting them, can one get from owning those guns if one doesn't really use them?
Well, I do use them. I went out hunting this last time. I haven't been hunting for a while because of where I've been stationed, such as in the seminary. You just didn't have time to do that.
Sure.
And being in Hudson, I didn't have in fact, I did go out hunting in Hudson a few times. I went out small game hunting, and I believe I did tell you that when you were there.
A priest and a gun enthusiast. These are two identities that should fundamentally clash. Yet, Father Erickson blends them with an unsettling ease. He explains his fascination with firearms, even acknowledging the glaring contradiction of a man of God finding solace and comfort in instruments that are designed for violence.
In Hudson, I didn't have in fact, I did go out hunting in Hudson a few times. I went out small game hunting, and I believe I did tell you that when you were there. Made it pretty clear that I went out small game hunting. I have a license. You can check that with the whatever. And I think it goes all the way back 3-4 years that I was small game hunting. But so
More basic, what's the satisfaction of shooting?
well, I like to eat what I shoot.
Besides
That's the number
that,
one thing. I do like to eat squirrel quite a bit.
if after you have been exonerated from your sins that you may confess, okay, does guilt go away?
I don't think so. I think guilt always remains with you. At least I found that the things that I've done, the guilt is always there. And the reason is, at least the way that I rationalize it in my own mind, is that that's God's way of saying, don't do that again.
Right.
I think the way I counsel people and tell people when they come into the confessional, I say, guilt is a good thing. It means you have a conscience.
He is then asked more questions about his personal history. The detectives want to know whether he has had confessions for his own sins. They want to understand the limit of the laws he has broken in his lifetime, trying to gauge the depth of his darkness.
What's the worst thing that you think that you have ever done that's been illegal?
The worst thing I've done that's illegal is getting those kids stuff to drink when I know I shouldn't have.
Going back to a firearm that would be used to kill Deanna James. Do you know where that firearm is?
No.
Has anybody ever told you where that gun is?
No.
There's nobody in Hudson.
No.
Have you ever told yourself where the gun is?
Tell myself what the gun is. No.
And if you think everything that you have heard so far is crazy, believe me, this next part is even worse. It reveals a level of calculation that is truly chilling.
I believe that if the person knows his suicide is wrong and they commit it, I believe it's in God's hands. I believe it's merciful. Ultimately, what I believe is that they don't go to heaven. That's what I believe. But there are other factors that play into that, such as were they thinking in the right frame of mind. But just on the very basis of the suicide itself, I would say that it would be just no.
Are you gonna, besides the two folks that are with you this evening, are you gonna tell anybody else that the law enforcement talked to you
Should
tonight?
should
Which
I or
is
shouldn't I?
December 7th. I'm asking you, are you gonna tell anybody?
I may tell my mother. I'll call the bishop.
What are you gonna tell the bishop?
Well, just tell them that you questioned me on these different things. I'll immediately tell them that there was an accusation made against me because I got to do that. And,
An accusation made about what?
well, the way you made it sounded like there's a sexual allegation made against me. If there's a sexual allegation made against me, I got to tell the bishop so that I can be removed from my position and go through all that crap, which...
Did we hear in this room?
That's what I was surmising.
Okay. And you have the alcohol thing?
Well, that's what I mean, that alcohol
The
thing.
whole,
Yeah.
you'd have to contact the bishop over that?
If there was an accusation made, I have to tell the bishop.
What'll be the consequences of that?
Immediate removal from the parish.
Ever contact the police department?
As soon as he'd know that you knew, so he would then contact the police department too.
It turns out that he had once checked with a psychiatrist to determine whether he had an alcohol problem, but he was deemed to be fine. More disturbingly, Father Erickson also had a brutal clarity on what would happen in the coming days. He seemed to know exactly where this investigation was heading.
So that I did not kill James Dan O'Connor. Did not happen.
Did you kill Dan?
I did not kill Dan.
Did you kill him?
No, I did not. I have no reason to want to kill Dan O'Connell. We never had any bad words towards one another. We never talked poorly to one another. There was never any confrontation between us. There was no reason for me to kill Dan O'Connell.
Okay. He came to our police department.
Mm-hmm.
We had a nice visit. That's just something that has come up through as part of the investigations.
Okay.
It's come up. There's some other things that that people come to us.
Mhm.
They want to help.
Sure.
They want to assist us. They want to help
Yeah.
the community, the law enforcement. And there's going to be a whole lot more people coming to us.
Sure. Well, I understand.
Over this. You know how well publicized it's been a national.
Oh yeah, no, I understand that. I've got to call the bishop, and I have.
You have to tell him whatever you feel that you have to tell him.
Well, if the kid's making an accusation, I have to tell him that the accusation is made.
If the bishop would call us, what should we tell him?
Well, you have to tell him what was said. Whatever he presents is what has to be, and that's automatically.
How about what you said?
It doesn't matter. In the eyes of the bishop, it does not matter. The charter is very clear, and so what matters is what the person making the accusation has.
The detectives let him know that this was, for the moment, an unofficial questioning. They explained that no formal complaint had been made at this stage of the investigation, a detail that can make a huge difference in how things turn out. So, while they issued a warrant to search his vehicle, they did it as casually as possible, trying to keep him calm and compliant.
You're good.
Sure.
He's good. He's good. He's good.
You're giving that away.
Uh-huh.
Don't.
I want to tell you something. If you want help,
No. I'm not.
this guy's here. I'm not looking at you as a priest. Don't look at me as law enforcement, man to man.
No, I'm
Okay.
fine. It's just a matter.
Are
I
you
gotta.
sure because right now there's got to be about a bazillion things racing through your mind.
Oh,
If there is something that we can help you with, now's be the time, because we do have some folks up here that we know that if you want to go speak to somebody,
or
anything like that.
It's a matter of dealing with
You're
the
done.
bishop, just talking to the bishop. That's all.
I just wouldn't tell him.
Oh gosh, I can't think it. I'm really honest. That makes my gut kind of turn.
Tell him because it's not been formalized. You wait till it's formalized.
But under the law, I'm a mandatory reporter and all these other things. And we just had a session on this.
Yeah,
All I can say is that when we were up here investigating, of course, the double homicide and other things that do come in during the course of this, you know, like we've told you before, we've talked to over 1,900 people. That's a lot of people.
Yep.
You hear a lot of things.
Yep.
Lots of things.
I know, but
And from there, you know, it's kind of our responsibility, you know.
I understand. I'm not
to
holding
ask
anything
you.
against you guys.
I'm not saying
That's not what
that
I do.
anybody. At this point, I'm not saying that anybody wants you arrested.
But even if
I'm
the
just saying that
accusation is made,
somebody came forward
and
with
what,
that.
yeah, and what I'm saying though is, if they came arrested or not, that
But if he just came in and said, "Well, I just want this on file in case if it's ever needed for the future," just put it that way.
I think we're
Then I'm
splitting
just
hairs and it makes
I'm
my
just
guts
laying
just
that.
churn.
Okay, I'm just laying that in your hands.
It gives you choices.
Okay,
You do with it what you want.
Choices.
I'll tell you this. I'll guarantee you, we are not going to leave here.
Oh,
You all right?
Oh, it's
We're
the back.
not going to leave here. Go back home tomorrow morning after we get done with our 5-mile jog. Go up and call the bishop and say, "Hey, guess what? We talked to Father Ryan last night. You know what he said?" That's not happening, Ryan.
I
That's
know,
not happening.
But the point is that I feel like I would be.
We are not- we are
I'm
not-
gonna have to just think about it.
We are not calling him.
Again, it's not a matter of that though. It's a matter of. It's more of a moral issue. This person said this, therefore. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not a matter of tattletaling on me or anything. It's a matter of, am I going to have the integrity to tell the bishop? You see?
No, I understand.
If he wants to call us, if you do decide, and we don't care what you do.
Father Erickson begins to talk about integrity and doing the right thing, but he does it with a seriousness that shows he was terrified of the thought. As the questions ended, he started talking more to himself than to the detectives. He looked utterly battle-worn, as if he was contemplating his own responsibility and whether he should formally report the matter himself. Seeing his fragile state of mind, the detectives try to calm him down. They explain again that their primary focus is the murder and that this wasn't a formal complaint.
I don't know where I was between 12:30 and 3 o'clock other than to say that I was up. I know the tobacco shop.
Let me ask you one question, an honest question, and you can even ask it of me. If you were pissed off enough to shoot someone and kill them, and I asked you, if you did it, would you tell me or Jeff?
If I did it right now,
What would you answer me?
if I did it, and I've been living with it for this long, and you guys had me cornered here, I'd break.
You
I'd
think
tell
so?
you. I know I would. And the reason is because I think the guilt would be so overwhelming. I really
If
do.
you could get away with it, would you tell us?
No. Yeah, I mean, if I could get away with it,
Yes.
probably. I mean, I try to get away with human nature says you try to get away with it. But I personally myself, I would tell you. I really believe that. I believe that if I did something that heinous, I would tell you because I don't think I could live with myself.
The walls were closing in, and Father Erickson knew it. Just days later, on December 19th, 2004, realizing he had run out of lies and places to hide, Father Erickson took his own life. He chose to end it rather than face the justice waiting for him. But the police didn't need a courtroom confession to know exactly what kind of man he was. During a forensic search of his computer conducted just days earlier, investigators found damning evidence in illegal images hidden away with the meticulous care of someone living a double life. You have to look at the psychology of where he hid them to understand his mind. The file path was buried deeply and deceptively. First, the My Pictures folder, then a folder innocently labeled Holy Mass Prayers, then Mass Prayers, then New Form, and finally, a folder named Boulder. He was literally using the sacred language of the church prayers and Mass to camouflage his darkest, most sinful secrets. Digital forensics revealed that this specific file was last accessed on December 12th, just days before he died by his own hand. He was looking at the evidence of his own depravity right up until the end. Using prayer folders to hide that filth, that is a level of deception that makes your skin crawl. It shows you exactly who he really was when the lights were off. Since there could be no criminal trial, a special John Doe hearing was later held to provide closure. After reviewing the evidence, a judge officially ruled that Erickson was solely responsible for the double homicide. The law had spoken, even if the defendant wasn't there to hear it. The full, tragic story finally came together when the silence was broken from within the church. A deacon testified that Erickson had actually confessed to him. The priest's words were blunt and terrified. "I'd done it, and they were going to catch me." This chilling admission matched the account of a school bus driver perfectly. She stated that Dan O'Connell, the man who would become Erickson's victim, had asked her pointedly if she had ever seen the priest touch a child inappropriately. Dan was investigating him. Tragically, Dan also mentioned to her that he had a meeting with the priest that very afternoon. He knew the danger. He had even been warned not to go alone. Dan O'Connell walked into that meeting trying to protect children, and it cost him his life. In one of his last notes, Erickson left a message that was a mix of narcissism and denial. He wrote, "I've lived a hard but exciting life. I learned and I taught. I helped people and I hurt them. But I never killed anyone. My ego, my pride, my lust, my envy have always stopped me from being the best person I could be. I am tired." Even in his final moments, he couldn't admit to the murders. But the facts don't lie. Father Erickson had killed to silence the funeral director who was about to expose his crimes against children, and he killed young James Ellison simply to eliminate an inconvenient witness. And to close this story, there is a final, cruel twist that is almost too monstrous to comprehend. It makes my skin crawl just thinking about it. The only member of the clergy to call on Dan O'Connell's widow in the 2 agonizing years after the murder was Ryan Erickson. The murderer himself visited her home, looked her in the eye, and offered comfort for the very pain he had caused. I don't know about you, but that makes me physically ill. Looking a widow in the eye after killing her husband? That isn't just murder. That is playing God in the cruelest way possible. That, my friends, is the absolute definition of evil. This story shows us that the scariest monsters don't always hide in the dark. Sometimes they hide in plain sight, wearing holy robes and preaching about love. The most terrifying part isn't just the crime itself, but the absolute betrayal of trust when a shepherd becomes the wolf who slaughters the flock. Now, tell us honestly, what made you angrier here? The brutality of the execution, or the fact that he visited the widow to comfort her while knowing he was the one who pulled the trigger? Do you think his suicide was an act of remorse, or was it just one final act of cowardice to escape earthly justice? And if you suspected a leader in your community was hiding a dark secret, would you have the courage to stand up like Dan did, or would you stay silent? Do you have similar stories? Share them in the comments. Let's talk about this together. If this story touched you, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next case, which will shock you even more. May Dan O'Connell and James Ellison rest in peace. The Gospel of Matthew warns us, "Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves." And this story proves it. Take this as a warning. Never let a title or a uniform blind you to the truth, because sometimes the devil stands right behind the pulpit. Now look at the screen. You see the next videos we prepared for you. Believe me, the next story exposes a betrayal even deeper than this one. So no goodbyes. May the Almighty bless your every step, waiting for you there.